Hello Wargamers, I'm Invasive Ramnus, and today I want to talk about my 1500 point Tau Eldar tournament list that I recently took to Frostycon in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's one of the first tournaments, if not the first, to test out this new asymmetrical mission design that you've been hearing a lot about on the internet. And so in this video I want to go over the list, and then I will talk a little bit about how the tournament went for me, and then a little bit more about the mission design and some of the choices I made and how I prepared for the tournament. So yeah, if you like this video, I think you know what to do. Of course, leave your comments about my army list, asymmetrical mission design, or anything like that in the comments below. And also, your subscriptions are greatly appreciated. It helps out a lot. So on with the show. All right, so starting with the primary detachment, which of course is going to be Tau. I have a commander with Flamer, Vectored Retrothrusters, Command and Control Node, PureTide Engram Neurochip, and Multi-Spectrum Sensor Suite, plus Iridium Armor. In my troops choices, I have a 8-man unit of Fire Warriors with Pulse Rifles, a 10-man unit of Kroot with Sniper Rounds, another 10-man unit of Kroot with Sniper Rounds, plus 1 Kroot Hound. Moving on to the elite section, I have 2 Riptides outfitted identically with Ion Accelerator, twin-linked fusion blasters, a early warning override, and a velocity tracker, so it has interceptor and skyfire. And he also takes 2 shielded missile drones. Now I know in previous videos I have dissuaded people from taking shielded missile drones, but in preparing for this tournament I was thinking that I might run into a fair number of grav guns, and since grav guns do damage based on the armor save of the target, I figured having a 4-up armor save granted by the drones would be better than the 2-up armor save granted by the Riptide. Also, I didn't bring any crisis suits, and so that freed up some points for me to do that. So there's that. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on as to whether or not I think that was a good trade-off, switching out the crisis suits for the drones. But I also took a 3-man unit of broadsides with high-yield missile pods and smart missile systems, plus 3 drones, missile drones, of course. And in my fast attack slot, I took 2 5-man units of Pathfinders. Onto my allied detachment of Eldar, I took a Farseer on Jetbike. Other than that, he's stock. And I took 2 3-man units of Jetbikes, and that can each contain 1 Shuriken cannon. So that's the list. I went 3-1, so I won 3 games and lost my final game against a Screamer Star list. But yeah, so overall I think the list performed really well. I really had a fun time at the tournament. All my opponents were very sportsmanlike, and I had a good time overall. I was going there not necessarily expecting to do very well, but things worked out for me in the end. Made a few lucky rolls, and made a few good calls too. So yeah, worked out, had a great time, a very good tournament. I won't go over the mission design too much since it's rather complicated, and you can read about the missions online. In fact, I'll put a link to the mission descriptions in the description below. So I definitely recommend you check that out. But the basic idea with an asymmetrical mission design is that each mission has a standard and alternative primary objective. So for the case of the Scouring, let's say, you can either choose the standard mission, which is based just like it is, or is scored just like it is in the basic rulebook, where scoring units or fast attack units can claim an objective at the end of the game, and that's worth so many points. But it really is only worth something at the end of the game, right? So it doesn't matter how many objectives you control throughout the game, it's what's on the table at the end of turn 5 or 6 or 7, whenever the game ends. And so the standard mission is just like it is out of the rulebook. The alternative mission, and this is why it's called asymmetrical, is that you accumulate 1 point for each objective you control at the beginning of your turn. So you could, score, if there's 6 objectives, you could score, a bunch of points each turn, and you'd only need to control a few points, a few objectives for a turn or two in order to accumulate points relatively quickly. And the idea there is that each opponent chooses in private which mission they're going to play, and then reveals that at the beginning of the game as to what objective they're going for. And so let's say you're playing as a Death Star unit, you can select to choose the standard mission because that's probably what you're going to be good at. Whereas if you're playing not necessarily as efficient of a list, you could choose something. You could choose the alternative mission, or let's say you're playing something that has just different strengths than what would be favored under the standard mission. You can choose the alternative mission, and therefore each player is potentially playing a different mission. They're not necessarily competing against each other directly for that same objective. And so that's why it's called asymmetrical. And yeah, so there's a link to all the mission descriptions in the description below, and I definitely recommend checking that out. Overall, I think that process worked really well. It was very interesting. There was a wide diversity of armies at the event, and yeah, it worked out really cool. And so I would not be surprised if you see this type of asymmetrical mission design at more tournaments, RTTs or GTs or whatever in the future. They're designed by GT organizers collaboratively all over the country, so it's not something that's unique to Frostycon. It's called the 40K Mission Catalog, I think is what it's called. But yeah, so cool idea, it worked out really well. I think, well, let's go over my opponents and I can talk a little bit about that. My first round was against a Eldar contingent. He had an Avatar, unit of Dire Avengers and a Wave Serpent, 2 units of Jet Bikes, unit of Striking Scorpions and a Wave Serpent, a unit of Wraith Guard, a Falcon, a Fire Prism, and a Viper and a Crimson Hunter. I selected, I think we both went for the primary mission on that one, and it worked out really well. It worked out well for me. I won that game. My second round opponent was a Chaos Space Marines army that had a Chaos Lord, Chaos Space Marines and Rhino, Chaos Space Marines and Rhino, Chaos Space Marines and Rhino, a unit of Bikers, which were joined by the Lord, a unit of Havocs that were behind an Aegis defense line, and 2 Mauler Fiends. That game could have ended up really poorly for me. Unfortunately for my opponent, he got all of his units right up against my firing line. I think it was right at the end of turn 1 or turn 2. He was right there, and it basically got the whole of my firepower against him, and a few lucky dice rolls for me that just kind of sealed the deal on that mission. But again, a very good game, and a very sportsman-like opponent. I really liked playing against him. Yeah, and so that mission was the what was it? It was the Vanguard deployment and Relic, and we both went for the standard mission on that as well. So we're both fighting for control of the Relic by the end of the game, and I pulled out a win in that round as well. My third round, I played against a Eldar army with Tau Allies, so kind of the opposite of what you see here. I don't retain an army list for him, but based off of memory, he had a couple units of Dire Avengers, Eldrad, a couple Wave Serpents, a Riptide with Buff Commander, a unit of Kroot, and a unit of Broadsides, plus a unit of Warp Spiders. that one I pulled out a win as well. It was kill points, and I was nervous about it because I deployed. Did I deploy first or second? I don't even remember now. I think I went first. So I deployed first, and then he deployed away in the corner, so most of my army couldn't reach him, and you know, I ended up pulling a win out from killing units that he had deep strike in and outflank and come in from reserves. A lot of what he had on the table at the beginning of the game didn't die because it was, you know, off in the corner. But everything else that he brought in, I don't think anything that wasn't on the table at the beginning of the game was not at the table at the end of the game. And then, yeah, so I pulled out a win on that end as well. Most of that, in fact, I would say almost all of it was completely due to firing from the broadsides, or from the riptides. The broadsides died just from a really unwise deployment on my part. They died right away. I don't think they even got to shoot anything. Most everybody else was hiding. Kroot, they got blasted right away. Yeah, so everybody was hiding, and then the riptides just kind of were shooting at stuff as they came in. So that was that game. My final match was against a Seer Star list, which it was actually my first time playing against Seer Star. The mission was the Scouring, and I opted to use the alternative scoring regime for that mission, thinking that, hey, I have, let's see, 3, 5, 7 scoring units. I should be able to, you know, hold some objectives. And, you know, even if I just control a few objectives for a turn or two, I should be able to pull out a win. That may have been true, but it was late in the day, and I just was not thinking about my deployment very well. And so he started off the game with just his Zinch Heralds and Screamers on the table, and then he had a unit of not Demonettes, Seekers, a unit of Plague Bearers, and a unit of what are they called? Horrors. He had a unit of Horrors all come in from reserve, and then Carios Fate Weaver also came in from reserve. So he had that, only the Screamer Star on the table, and that ended up charging into my broadsides turn 1. I wanted to make sure that they were positioned in a place where they were going to be able to shoot at the Seer Star, and they did shoot at, but then they also got charged. So that was just really poor deployment. And then I kind of had my whole army stretched out along the board edge too, which was unwise decision on my part. I'm not sure why I did that, but after getting up to the broadsides, he multi-assaulted not only the broadsides, but a unit of Fire Warriors, a Riptide, a unit of Pathfinders. Yeah, I think that was it. But he had 1, 2, 3, 4. He multi-assaulted 4 units, and you know, that did not go well for me. So he basically wiped 4 units off the table in a single turn, and that was pretty much it for me. I pulled out a moral victory on my part by not getting 0 points that round, but in all, I placed 3rd out of 36, or potentially 5th, depending on how it was scored. I'm not sure. The certificate says 3rd, but I think it would actually, if you looked at the points, it turned out to be 5th, just because I don't think 1st and 2nd were included in the numbering there, which is kind of confusing. But 3rd or 5th, either way, very happy with the performance. I wasn't expecting to do that well at all, and it worked out well for me. Like I said, it was a really fun time. Yeah, so I'm happy. Couldn't complain. Let's see. Did I have anything else I want to talk about? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, I did. So basically, when I went into the mission, or went into the tournament, I had thought about the mission design ahead of time and had planned out kind of under what scenarios I would take the standard and what scenarios I would take the alternate objective. Basically, for Crusade and Scouring, I would take the alternative under cases where I wasn't facing a Death Star. And if I was facing a Death Star, I would take the alternative like I did in round 4, where it didn't work out for me. In the Relic, I was going to take the standard only if I was going to take the standard in situations where I didn't have more scoring units than the opponent, or if I didn't have sufficiently mobile scoring units. In kill points, I was going to select the alternate mission, which basically says that each unit can only get 1 kill point. So like my Riptide, even if it kills 3 units, it only counts as killing 1 for kill points. That's the alternative for the kill points mission. I said I was going to take alternative mission if I was facing a Death Star, but otherwise I was going to take standard. And then I already went over Scouring. So the reasons for that was just thinking about the strengths of my army. Basically, I have some mobility with the jet bikes and with outflanking Kroot, and I have kind of a slow burn with firepower from the Riptides, and then a bit more burst, heavy firepower from the broadsides. But yeah, there's not a lot of firepower in my troop selections, which I actually have a fair number of. So that was why in situations where I was going to be advantaged by having lots of scoring units, I was going to follow the standard mission, and places where I was going to be kind of outgunned or outlasted by a Death Star, I was going to take the alternative mission. So basically, if I was facing a Death Star, I'd take the alternative. It's what it really boils down to. There was also secondary objectives that you could escalate. So First Blood, Linebreaker, and Slay the Warlord. Basically, I always selected to escalate Linebreaker, which made it just a little bit more complicated than just having 1 unit. Basically, you got 1 point for every unit up to 4 that you had across in the enemy deployment zone, not including independent characters. And since I had jet bikes and Kroot and Riptides that can thrust move far distances, I always escalated Linebreaker instead of any of the other ones. So, and that worked out really well for me. And I think in every mission but the last one, where I got completely wiped off the table, with the exception of I think at the end of the game I had a Riptide, 1 shielded missile drone, and the commander and 2 jet bikes left on the table. That was it. So everything except for that turn, I got either 3 or 4 secondary objective points, because this army was well equipped to deal with the secondary objective of escalated Linebreaker. Yeah, so alright guys, let me know what you think of the army list. Let me know what you think about the asymmetrical mission design. Again, I really had a good time at Frostycon. Lots of cool armies there, high diversity of armies, and it was really well put on, and lots of nice people there. Really good time. So, alright, thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.